So last night we had slightly surprising results. The polls indicated that Donald Trump had as much as an 8-point lead. That was not what happened last night. Ted Cruz won. Let me show you the numbers. He got 27.6% of the vote. Donald Trump came in second at 24.3%. Marco Rubio, and interesting and surprising, third, 23.1%, almost caught Donald Trump. Ben Carson shockingly still managed to get 9.3%. Rand Paul at 4.5%. His dad almost won last time around in 2012. He was supposed to be a better candidate than his dad, perhaps not. Jeb Bush with a wonderfully embarrassing 2.8%. Carly Fiorina, Kasich, Huckabee, Christie, Santorum barely showed up. And then Jim Gilmore, my favorite, actually got 12 human beings to vote for him. I actually don't know how he did that. Okay, so now let's break down why this happened. Well, Huffington Post explains Cruz benefited from superior campaign organization. Cruz also won nearly a third of those who said they'd been personally contacted by a Get Out the Vote effort, a larger share than any other candidate. So this is point one as to why Cruz upset Donald Trump. He had a better ground game. That's because he cares. And so he really, really wants to win, and he spent some of his money on organizing at the states so that people who were likely to be his voters would get contacted, they'd get calls, they would get assistance to go out and caucus. Donald Trump claims to be a great manager, but is in fact a horrific manager, didn't bother to have a ground game, didn't bother to call his supporters, and so they didn't show up. So what could have been a victory for him turned into a defeat. So that's one of the reasons why. And let me now give you more details. Cruz earned the support in 4 in 10 very conservative voters in the state, a group which made up 40% of the electorate according to the preliminary entrance poll data. Let me give you a little bit more color on this and we'll explain it. Cruz was also backed by 1 out of every 3 evangelical voters, an important victory group that accounted for nearly 2/3 of the electorate. So Iowa was stacked in favor of Ted Cruz. If his guys showed up to vote, he was actually more likely to win because it is heavily evangelical and heavily conservative. That is a group that favors Cruz much more than it does Donald Trump. And because he had good organization, they did show up to work. So this is point number 2 as to why he had an advantage in Iowa. So who did Trump appeal to? Well, in this state, this does not bode well for him. Trump performed best with moderates, believe it or not, garnering 34% of their vote, but they accounted for only 14% of the GOP electorate in Iowa. Now, that'll be a much larger number in New Hampshire. There are more moderate voters in New Hampshire's Republican primary, so Donald Trump is more likely to win New Hampshire. But the demographics here did not help out Donald Trump. So now, there is a third factor, which is the people who decided at the end. So we go back to Huffington Post for that. Preliminary exit polls show Cruz and Rubio significantly outperforming Trump among the 45% of voters who decided sometime in the last week. Well, could that be affected by the fact that Donald Trump didn't show up to the debate before the voting, a couple of days before the election? Yeah, it could definitely be affected by that. Now, that was a Fox News debate, and he didn't show up because he was having a fight with them. Gee, I wonder if Fox News will gloat about that. Let's find out.
Also, Brett, interesting to point out that Donald Trump did not do particularly well with people who decided late. Marco Rubio seems to be doing better with them, so he may come to rue the day that he did not show up for that final debate on Thursday night, because a lot of people were looking to that debate for some signals on how to make up their mind. Trump was not there. Many late deciders may have looked at that and said, you know, I'm going to go a different way. Brett?
Let me translate that for you. There was about a dozen of those on Fox News. I'll give you just one more here.
But I do think that one thing that's going to come through loud and clear is how different this night might have been for Donald Trump, and this isn't just because I work at Fox, had he participated in that debate. What do you think?
I agree with you.
Of course we do. But in this rare case, they're actually right. I think it made a huge difference. Let me give you more data to back that up. According to NBC News interest poll, Rubio earned votes from 29% of Iowa voters who made up their mind in the last few days, while Senator Ted Cruz received support from 24% of those who recently decided, and Donald Trump received only 14%. Well, if you weren't top of mind because they didn't see you in the last debate, and by all accounts, so not our account, we didn't see it this way, but according to Republican focus groups, Marco Rubio did really well, and he picked up a lot of voters. Donald Trump made a classic mistake. He loves the spotlight. That's how he got to where he is. But for that brief moment, he gave up the spotlight and allowed Rubio to shine, at least to Republican voters. And that made a big, big difference here. And it made enough of a difference for Cruz as well, so that Rubio performed much better and Cruz even won, beat Donald Trump. And right now, the guy who loves to gloat about how, oh, I'm a winner, I'm the best, I'm the #1 in polls, you guys are a mess, you guys are losers, now has to deal with the fact that in Iowa, he was a loser. But Ted Cruz shouldn't get too excited because of this last fact. Since 1972, when Iowans became the first in the nation to vote for presidential candidates, only 3 non-incumbents have won both Iowa and then the general election. The reason for that is the demographics of Iowa, especially on the Republican side, are not very representative of the rest of the country. 2/3 are evangelical voters. That's gigantic. So people who are much more religious wind up winning those, including Mike Huckabee in 2008 and Rick Santorum in 2012. You know what they won afterwards? A date with a brick wall. Their campaigns didn't go anywhere after that. Yes, Huckabee, put together a campaign in 2008, but it was inevitable loss. Rick Santorum hung in there for a long time in 2012, inevitable loss. So Ted Cruz should be happy that he beat Donald Trump. If Donald Trump had won last night, this whole race might be over and he would be even more unbearable. But he shouldn't be overly happy because Iowa is fairly unrepresentative on the Republican side. And so you haven't heard the last of Donald Trump, unfortunately.